This is Justin Ford for From the Front Line. Is the Great Commission your supreme ambition? The Great Commission course in Cape Town. That is the topic we will be discussing in tonight's episode. In the studio with me is Dr. Peter Hammond, the founder of Frontline Fellowship, who has been involved in serving persecuted Christians for over 40 years in 38 countries. Good evening, Dr. Hammond. Every year, Frontline Fellowship organizes a missionary training course. What led you to initiate the Great Commission course, and what is its purpose?
Well, having been in the field and seeing the need, I realized we need to recruit more people, more volunteers, because we've got far more invitations than we can possibly respond to. And the need in Africa is great. In fact, the church is growing so phenomenally that, according to Operation World, we now have 680 million churchgoers in Africa. But we have only 150 million Bibles and New Testaments. That means 500 million churchgoers in Africa don't have a Bible or even a New Testament. And there's so much need, not just for more Bibles, but Bible teaching, because most pastors in Africa have no formal Bible college training at all. And therefore, the greatest needs in Africa is for Bibles and for Bible teaching. And the Great Commission course is designed to educate, to equip, to encourage, and to empower those who are serious about missions, to motivate and to mobilize people into mission. So there's inspiration, there's information, but mostly involvement, getting people involved on the streets. And that's why the symbol of the Great Commission course is the boots laced up, full armor of God, feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace.
Where and when is the Great Commission course held? How long have you been conducting these courses, and from where have participants come?
Well, the Great Commission course is from the 2nd of January, that's Friday the 2nd of January, through to Wednesday the 21st of January. 2nd to 21st, it's a 3-week course, and it'll be held in Cape Town near Table Mountain and the ocean. Over the last 28 years, since 1998, participants of Great Commission course have come from as far afield as Australia and America, from Britain and from Botswana, from Canada and the Congo, from Ghana and from Germany, from Pakistan and Peru, from Russia and Romania, from Namibia, Nigeria and New Zealand, from Malawi and from Mozambique, from Swaziland, Sudan and Switzerland, and from around South Africa. And you can say also from Zambia and from Zimbabwe.
For whom is the Great Commission course designed?
Well, it's designed for those who are serious about missions. Those who are serious about missions, who want to make the Great Commission their supreme ambition. This is an in-depth, intensive, practical crash course for those wanting to be more effective in cross-cultural evangelism. This is a uniquely practical missionary course for everyone who desires to be more innovative and more effective in cross-cultural evangelism and discipleship. The last command of Christ should be our first concern. And the Great Commission course has been designed by Frontline Fellowship as a uniquely practical missionary training program for those who want to make their lives count for eternity. And if you want to be getting insights in what is behind the scenes as to what's actually involved in missions and cross-cultural missionary work, particularly in areas where Christians are persecuted for their faith, and there's 67 countries in the world where the Bible is illegal and where governments have laws restricting and persecuting Christians. Well, the Great Commission course is designed particularly for those who are serious about missions, cross-cultural evangelism, the 1040 window, Muslim evangelism, serving the persecuted church. This is for whom the course is designed.
In what way is Frontline Fellowship qualified to conduct these Great Commission courses?
Well, Frontline Fellowship has pioneered missionary work in war-torn Mozambique and Angola in the 1980s. And since 1995, in Islamic Sudan, in the Muslim Middle East, in the 1040 window. And during this time, Frontline Fellowship has smuggled over 750,000 Bibles and Christian books in 24 languages just into war-torn Islamic Sudan. And we've trained many thousands of pastors, teachers, chaplains, and medics in restricted access areas. Then for over 22 years, our Literature for Africa ministry has distributed an average of 200 tons of Bibles and books, completely free every year, in up to 100 languages. And Frontline Fellowship was also involved in smuggling Bibles behind the Iron Curtain serving the persecuted churches in Eastern Europe during the Cold War back in 1980s. So we've got quite a wide variety of experience across several continents, but particularly across Africa, serving the persecuted church. And this has given us an insight to the wide variety of challenges people are going to face and the different worldviews and religions that they will confront.
What can participants expect at the upcoming GCC?
Well, they can expect an intensive missions training course with daily physical training, with outreaches, with practicals, with hands-on ministry in townships and marketplaces. And at the GCC, participants will not only enjoy fellowship with other missionary-minded Christians and receive first-hand report backs of examples of excellence in the field, with slide presentations, PowerPoints, films from Europe, from Nigeria, from the Congo, from Sudan, Zimbabwe and Zambia, Angola, Mozambique. But in addition, there'll be great Bible teaching, challenging discussion groups, practical workshops, intensive prayer, mountain hikes, problem solving, team building practicals, including things like self-defense and how to handle film equipment for film evangelism, how to do outdoor evangelism with setting up the screens and all that, and how to fix your car with basic missions mechanical first aid in the field. There'll be some physical first aid as well for injuries which can happen, insights and advice on how to cope with the different diseases and problems in some of the mission fields, because we've worked in some of the places like the Congo, Nigeria, where there's a lot of disease you can get. And then you think up in Sudan, where there's everything from guinea worm to malaria and tsetse fly, sleeping sickness. So many insights and advice we can give that will enable a person to stay healthy and be more effective in the field for longer. And basically everything from, there'll be opportunities for swimming, mountain climbing, hiking in the forest, even practicals on how to do Bible smuggling behind the lines. We've got a very cosmopolitan city around us here in Cape Town. We can go into an area that looks just like the Middle East, where there's 13 mosques, not a single church, where the people are overwhelmingly Muslim, and not just indigenous Muslims, but as you'll get at almost any time when we go to Burkop, we bump into people from Pakistan, from Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Algeria. It's amazing when you get the opportunities. Some of these chaps like Saudi Arabia saying, this Bible is illegal in our country, in Saudi Arabia. And they're really getting excited, and there's glints in their eyes, you've given me something that's illegal in my country. And there's this fascination. So to be able to evangelize amongst Muslims where it's legal and where you're not going to be arrested by the government for having shared the gospel with a Muslim, this is a unique opportunity that we're in an area where we've got quite a lot of Muslims. In fact, you could go in and with a film crew and you could make a film looking like you're in the Middle East. That's how Islamic some of these places are. Right down to the death to America, death to Israel slogans on the walls and pro-Hamas logos and flags. And just extraordinary. It's like you can go into an entire different culture, worldview, religious area. And then we've got the harbour. And so in the harbour we can actually evangelize amongst people who are from China, Korea, Indonesia, Pakistan, all kinds of places where they from closed countries, but their sailors come past Cape Town, they stop in the harbour, and we get the chance to reach people from closed countries here. And there's a few places where you can have a short-term missionary training program where people can have such a wide variety of evangelizing people from so many different languages, cultures, and religions.
Are there any noteworthy guest lecturers that you would like to mention?
Yes. For example, we've got Dr. Philip Stott, who's a creation scientist, and outstanding presentations. I've heard Philip Stott many occasions. I've even organized for him to go into universities around Cape Town where the entire faculties are hostile. And even if I didn't understand all the nuances of the finer points of creation science, I did understand this. Philip Stott could speak in enemy territory to heads of departments and professors in biology and geology and so on, and see that they were completely incapable of answering what he brought up. And to see these chaps, sometimes I was at the back of the hall and there's a man standing with a How to Debate Creation Sciences book, and he's literally reading from the book. And there's Philip Stott, barefoot in his suit, standing behind the lectern. He had peeled off his shoes and his socks with his toes, and he's rocking backwards and forwards on his heels and the balls of his feet and rubbing his hands together, saying, "I'm so glad you asked that question." And without notes, he can quote chapter and verse from those atheist and evolutionist own sources and studies, and completely dismantle the attacks on creation. And he lays out the intelligent design, biblical principles, scripture and science so effectively. And we've had Philip Stott silencing the skeptics at University of Cape Town, University of Western Cape, Cape Technikon, and at Stellenbosch University. And I never saw any evolutionist able to get him off his stride, or never was he without eloquent answers with much substance. So it's quite clear, even when we try to get evolutionists willing to debate Philip Stott, they completely failed. They wouldn't take an opportunity like that. I found, like when we had Dr. Dwayne Gish here from Creation Research Council in America, we couldn't find a single evolutionist willing to debate him. Same thing with Dr. Philip Stott. None of the evolutionists are willing to debate a creation scientist. They know they've got no chance. The facts just aren't on the evolutionist side. So it's a great privilege to have someone as capable as Philip Stott, and people who go onto our website will see his unique qualifications. He's an engineer who's lectured everywhere from Manchester University through Nigeria and around major universities in South Africa. He's the engineer who built the phenomenal 10,000-seater auditorium at Kwasi's Winter Mission. When the Berlin Wall came down, when the Iron Curtain collapsed, Philip Stott was invited to Russian universities, state universities, where the entire faculty and students would gather to hear him, and introductions went something like this. We know that the communists lied to us about economics and history, theology. We wonder if they also lied to us about science. Please teach us about creation. And Philip Stott would normally get standing ovations from Russian secular universities. I mean, just phenomenal. And, from one side to the other, from St. Petersburg through Moscow, all over Russia, here's the South African creation scientist who was a guest of state universities, which had once been bastions of atheism and communism. And now the people are giving standing ovations to a creation science presentation. So we get the chance to have Philip Stott here as a key part of our first week, the Biblical Worldview Summit, which is the first week of the Great Commission course. And invaluable to be equipped and empowered to witness for Christ in a secular, hostile environment, especially a environment that's anti-Christian like the average university today.
Why should pastors and parents consider sending their young people to this missionary course?
Well, if you're serious about missions, or if you want your child to be serious about missions or to be effective in knowing what they believe, why they believe it, how to defend it in argument, and more importantly, how to win fellow students to Christ if they are going to university, or win their friends, neighbors, co-workers to Christ. This is an intensive, practical, hands-on 3-week course incorporating daily PT, intensive Bible study, lectures most mornings, outreaches and practicals every afternoon, and it'll include film evangelism, Muslim evangelism, mass literature distributions at railway stations and bus stations, personal one-on-one evangelism, and either outreaches or more training in the evenings, topped up with regular late-night hikes, culminating in the hike up and over Table Mountain, what we call the high points of the course, literally. And the Great Commission course will also involve numerous practical tests, evaluations, missionary assignments to stretch minds and to stretch muscles.
Can you elaborate on the outreaches? What do they involve?
Well, it would involve things like going to railway stations, to bus stations, massive literature distribution of literature, or personal one-on-one evangelism conversations, sometimes shopping malls, sometimes a Muslim area where we go door to door and witness to people in a overwhelmingly 100% Muslim area. in a place with 13 mosques, not a single church. It'll involve getting into sometimes areas where it's mostly secular people, even where there's witchcraft adherence. We get into public areas like parks to get into conversation with people one-on-one. We'll do some film evangelism outreaches too. Even getting to one of the oldest mission stations in the country, Ganadendal, which now is something of a mission field. It's a museum, but the community around needs evangelism. There's real problems with drunkenness and drink and drugs, and so it's a mission field too. So it's a historic place to go, Ganadendal, but also a good example of the fact that every generation needs to come to the Lord personally. God does not have grandchildren, and you can see that at Ganadendal. So yes, there's some brilliant outreach opportunities. We've got some excellent literature. We will train people in the way of the Master and in evangelism explosion. We've got excellent tracts and World Missionary Press gospel booklets, all scripture, and things specifically designed for reaching Muslims, like From Life Challenge, and others aimed specifically for reaching atheists and skeptical secular folks. So it's a pretty wide range of ministry opportunities people will have. As William Carey said, expect great things from God, attempt great things for God.
Are there any other cultural or nature outings?
Yes, we definitely get to the forest. I'm planning also dragon boating, paddling, team building in Table Bay Harbour as well. That's always you will get wet, you may get soaked opportunity, but it's exhilarating doing dragon boat racing in the harbour with all kinds of seals and other sea life around you. We'll get into Newlands Forest, we'll get up Table Mountain, we'll get some of the great historical places like the Cape of Good Hope Castle, the oldest building still inhabited and being used in the southern hemisphere. We'll get the folks to some wonderful places in nature, a beachfront where you can actually see so many different cultures, but also a fair bit of wildlife too. So people interact with wildlife. Folks who want to meet with, for example, cheetahs and other big cats. There's a wildlife sanctuary nearby that we normally visit as well for that. So, yes, I don't think you could pack more into 3 weeks anywhere else. We designed this for folks who might come from overseas who want to see something of Africa. They want to do some evangelism and ministry. They want to learn as well. So it's a mixture of learning, enjoying, experiencing, and also being used by the Lord in reaching people who wouldn't be reached any other way.
Dr. Emmett, where can listeners learn more about the Great Commission course?
By visiting www.frontlinemissionsa.org, you'll see right at the top there's a GCC PWS button. There's also an events button. You click on that and it'll take you to where there's videos, podcast details. You can see some pictures of previous courses and learn a whole lot more from previous blogs. So you can email admin@frontline.org.za, go onto the Frontline Fellowship website, frontlinemissionsa.org. If you're on Facebook, there's a Great Commission Camp and Course Facebook page. There's also a Biblical Worldview Summit page on Facebook. You can also get links on the Frontline Fellowship and Literature for Africa Facebook pages. There's a whole lot of interesting double connections there. But speaking to people who've been on the courses before, we've had people coming from so many parts of the world, from all over the world, from as far afield as Canada to New Zealand. So obviously there's something special about being in Cape Town at the southernmost point of the African continent, what William Carey called the utmost parts of the earth. Interesting that when William Carey passed Table Bay on his way to India, and he was in India for 42 years, never took a furlough, never came home. William Carey is buried in India. He was the pioneer of modern missions, really the father of modern missions. William Carey actually recommended a World Missionary Conference back in the 1800s. And he said Cape Town's the perfect venue. It's at the utmost parts of Earth from the perspective of Europe. And it's at the junction between the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a tavern of the seas. It's what Francis Drake called the most beautiful cape in all the world. And here, interestingly enough, William Carey promoted the idea of a World Missionary Conference 100 years before the first one was held in 1910 in Edinburgh. Well, 100 years later, Cape Town hosted a World Missions Conference. So William Carey was 200 years ahead of his time, recommending a World Missions Conference in Cape Town, and we were part of that. But every year we have this Great Commission course, which is not just a training seminar, but it's an outreach opportunity. So people who want short-term missionary opportunities, and I've often heard people wanting to go on a short-term outreach, and they're often disappointed that they didn't feel they achieved much or learned much. So I know of, for example, John Boyd, who was president of Missionary Aviation Fellowship, told us many young people would come to Haiti for a missions outreach week. But he said they spent less than 2 days actually in the field. They spent most of the time lying by the swimming pool at a hotel in Port-au-Prince, in Haiti's capital, in the swimming pool, drinking milkshakes and so on. And then for 2 days they'd fly them in where they were actually in an unreached mission field area. And he said many of them would complain that they didn't think they'd interact with the people enough, they hadn't learned enough, and they hadn't done enough evangelism. But what do they expect if they're going to spend most of the time sitting in a hotel in the capital city? So there's a lot of dissatisfaction with short-term mission outreaches. So when we had people saying, we'd like to come and work with you for a few weeks in short-term outreach, I got the idea that, well, you've got to prepare people before they can be effective in the field. And so initially our Great Commission course was just to prepare people for the next outreaches. And we found that, well, we can make it even more beneficial from a learning point of view, and they'll still get more outreach opportunities than the average short-term mission outreach that people plan for holidays. So if a person has limited time and all they can do is give a few weeks a year, well, beginning of January is a good time. Most people have holiday around that time and they can dedicate some time to a foreign field. But while they're about it, we've made it interesting from a tourist point of view. They're going to see a lot, they're going to experience a lot, they're going to learn a lot. And nothing like getting to the top of Table Mountain, getting to some of these phenomenal, interesting historic places, hiking in New Orleans Forest at night. We specialize in night hikes. And most people are actually quite surprised when they discover that they have night sights. I'm not talking about the equipment, but God has equipped us with night sights. When you've been in the dark for about 15 to 20 minutes, about 100,000 light-sensitive rods get activated in your eyes. And it's amazing that you could be in pitch dark and you couldn't see anything, and your hand in front of your face you couldn't see. And then suddenly, after you've been in the dark for about 15, 20 minutes without a torch, and most people don't know what it's like to be in dark because they always switch on a torch or something like that. But then suddenly, you can see the leaves, you can see the cobweb, you can see the parfait over there, you can see the porcupine, you can see the hedgehog. It's amazing what you can see after you've been in the dark for long enough to adjust. So one of the amazingly interesting places we can see in Cape Town is the Castle of Good Hope, which it's the oldest building in the Southern Hemisphere. It's not going to impress anyone from Europe because they've got castles that go back 1,000 years and so on. But this one goes back 350 years. And when I put the people in the dungeon, close the door and switch off the light, there's always gasps and screams because most people have never been in pitch darkness. And for most, they find it unbearable to be for a few seconds in total darkness. But we'll train folks that they'll be comfortable in the dark, climbing in mountains and doing Bible smuggling drills in the forest in a very short space of time. We even had a person come to our course just to show you how in 3 weeks you can really transform a person's physical fitness. We had a person come who, on the first day with PT, when told to run around Rondebosch Common, she said, "I've never run my life." And this was my father-in-law's secretary, Christy Blanchard. And she came just to see what it was like. And, well, we said, if you can't run the whole way around the common, run for a few minutes or seconds and then walk, and then run and walk, and build up your strength and try and increase the running each day. And she did. And after 3 weeks, she was running the whole way around the common without stopping. And then came the Great Commission courses, High Point, climbing Table Mountain. And Christy at one point said to me, as I was passing her, "I've burned more calories than I'm worth." I'm sure most women keep tabs on calories, the intake and all that. Well, she not only completed that hike, when she got back to Arizona, she started doing long-distance runs. And before you knew it, she was doing half marathons. And then she did marathons. And she ended up marrying a missionary, going to India, has 4 or 5 children, and real success story. I mean, there's an Exhibit A of the Great Commission course. A person came to us who had no ability to run at all and ended up doing marathons and climbing mountains and being in a field, and a difficult field at that, India. So people may be surprised when you've got a discipline every week, every day for 3 weeks. It's amazing how you can literally change your fitness. And that includes mental and spiritual fitness too. We stretch minds and we stretch muscles. People have devotions every day, they have quiet times, and there's PT every day. And it's amazing how that builds up. And at the end of 3 weeks, if a person can do that, they're really in a friendly environment or surrounded by people who are encouraging you, then it can really be a turning point in your life. And some people have experienced that the Great Commission course was one of the greatest experiences in their life, really changed their life, revolutionized their prayer life, their devotion life, changed them even physically and so on. So it's a real crash course for missions, but it's also the kind of physical fitness experience that some people hire expensive biokineticists at the local gym to help get them to this fitness. And, that just comes as a fringe benefit of the Great Commission course.
Is there any preparation that people should do before they come on the course, reading or?
Well, I would recommend reading the Book of Acts. I mean, that's the missionary handbook of the Bible. So reading the Book of Acts is great. I would say if a person's physically unfit, start walking every day, and if you can, increase that to running as and when you feel comfortable, because the more physically fit you are, the more you'll enjoy it. Now, even if people who come not physically fit, like Christy, still manage at the end of 3 weeks of PT to climb Table Mountain. So we will get a person to the fitness where they can do it. But it's a lot more pleasant if you're not wheezing and choking and spluttering and running out of breath every few minutes. So a little bit of exercise. If a person says, I don't belong to a gym and so on, well, what can they do? Do some sit-ups and press-ups by your bed every day and increase some walking in the neighborhood. And that'll be some good physical preparation. But reading the Book of Acts will be good spiritual preparation.
Is the Great Commission course only available for full-time participants, or could guests join in for a portion of the course?
Well, for people who are in Cape Town, they would be welcome to join us for evening lectures or some of the afternoon outreaches if they wanted to. Yes, even some for the morning lectures. Quite a few people tend to join in for the Saturday lectures because that's more accessible. People who've got normal work during the day and couldn't take time off. So, yes, we do have people sometimes joining in as guests to appreciate the lectures and so on and the presentations. And often there's quite a lot who come and join us for the hike up Table Mountain. It's great fellowship and so on. But obviously it's going to be more enjoyable if you do everything and you're part of the whole routine and being pushed and stretched and keeping a balance between the devotional, the practical, body, mind and spirit ministry. So while a person will enjoy it more if they do everything together, not everyone can spare the time. So yes, we are open to guests joining us, and we can make the program available closer to the time when folks would find they can surely fit in a few opportunities if they live fairly close by in Cape Town.
Thank you, Dr. Do you have any final comments or any observations you'd like to make to our listeners?
Yes, well, some of the subjects we tackled would even include character studies, examples of excellence, missionary pioneers who changed the world, and how to apply the Lordship of Christ to all areas of life, how to resolve interpersonal conflicts, which is inevitable in the field of cross-cultural ministry, the problem of evil, child evangelism, even serving the suffering, ministering to persecuted, how to be effective in public speaking, and how to counsel people to salvation, principles for changing nations, the law and grace, the balance between the gospel and the law of God, how to be effective in evangelizing Muslims in particular, some great historical dates with destiny, what does it take to be a missionary, how to discover our gifts and calling. And these are just some of what's being offered. It's a really intense, practical, boots on the ground, hands-on missionary crash course.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hammond. In closing, I'd like to read from Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 to 20. And Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Thank you very much for joining us for From the Frontline. God bless and good night.